Just over a month into the second Trump administration, the White House has pushed an aggressive agenda, including cuts to federal government agencies that had hardly been touched in a long time.
The House passed a budget bill last night with nearly $7 trillion in proposed cuts. Buffalo Congressman Tim Kennedy was there, and he joins us now live from Washington. Tim, thank you for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, good to see you both. Thanks for having me.
Let's pick it up right where we left off there. You were there last night for the budget bill. Walk us through that process, if you could, briefly, and then what's your reaction? Because the reaction has been a lot since last night.
Yeah, well, first of all, on the floor of the House, it was utter chaos. The Republican majority couldn't get their eggs in a row. They were missing votes, then they were changing votes, and ultimately they ended up passing this bill that's bad for the people of America by 2 votes. That is, it was catastrophic in its form, because what this bill actually does is it defunds services, including Medicaid, will butcher services for the American people, give billions of dollars in tax cuts for billionaires in this country. This is something that hurts everyday Americans to the expense of everyday Americans to benefit the richest Americans in this country. And, you know, I and my colleagues in the Democratic caucus voted against this thoughtless bill that will hurt everyday Americans, that'll butcher Medicaid. You know, folks that depend upon services like early intervention for an occupational therapist like myself, and physical therapy that took care of kids before I was elected with disabilities, or other individuals with disabilities, or those that are infirmed, our parents, our grandparents that are seeking assistance in long-term care facilities. This has the potential to gut healthcare as we know it. This is a bad bill. And with trillions of dollars in cuts in services that will have an impact on everyday Americans, those only to benefit are the billionaires in this country, led by the richest man in the world, this unelected billionaire, Elon Musk, who is running roughshod over services in this country and the American people. He's running roughshod over the Constitution. He's hurting the federal workforce by gutting the federal workforce and the services that they provide, including the military veterans that have served this country.
Tim, let's actually, I'm going to cut you off there, and I do apologize for cutting you off, because I did want to talk specifically about some of the departments that are impacted, because you're talking about a massive bill. Now, some of the things you were talking about could be included in the Senate version. We've got a long way to go before then. Right. But so far proposed, Tim, these are some things where they are near and dear to your heart, especially veterans and the Veterans Administration. There are cuts within there, and we know how hard Buffalo has been fighting to improve conditions at the Buffalo VA.
Exactly right. I mean, this is devastating for the heroes of America that have fought and bled for this country. And the fact that there are cuts to the VA services across this country that our veterans depend upon is absolutely appalling. It's unconscionable, and we can't stand for it. So look, this is the beginning of this process. Our voices are more important now than ever before. And we've got to stand up, and we've got to fight for our veterans. We've got to stand up, and we've got to fight for those that have been disabled in serving our country, that are working to provide services for our country. You know, there were yesterday, before the Veterans Affairs Committee that I sit on, we had conversations with the administration. They wouldn't even answer the questions. We had veterans and service-disabled veterans that were in the crowd that were crying, that had lost their jobs, that have fought and bled for this country, that were losing their jobs. And you know what they did after they fought for this country and they served our country so nobly? They went into public service to provide for us, the American people. And their departments are being gutted haphazardly and without cause. As a matter of fact, I spoke to a disabled military veteran this past week who's worked for the federal government for over 15 years. And he's a fellow Western New Yorker. And his job was cut. Why? because he took a promotion. He was considered exemplary service. He took a promotion, and because he took a promotion, he was considered on probation. And because he was on probation, his job was arbitrarily cut. That's not how we treat our American heroes. That's not how we should be treating our veterans. Our country is better than that. Our community is better than that. And that's why we're fighting back and voting no on this budget. One of many various reasons we're voting no.
Congressman, because you were talking about the federal government layoffs, I'm curious, what are Democrats working to do as a solution for those workers?
We have our voices and we have our vote. And what we are is a conduit to the American people. And I think people are absolutely disgusted with what they're seeing coming out of the Republicans in the majority in both the House and in the Senate and out of the White House, who has empowered the unelected billionaire Elon Musk, who is running around gutting services that the American people depend upon. And then he's standing on stage in his arrogance with a chainsaw, laughing at the American people while he's gutting our services. And why? To get a tax cut for the richest Americans, for billionaires like himself. That is absolutely unacceptable. We deserve better in this country. People deserve better in this country. And we're working to make sure that we're having our voices heard loud and clear to defend the American people, to stand up for the American people. We're asking folks, organize, mobilize, have your voices heard. Now is the time. It is a critical moment in this budget process, and it's a critical moment in American history to have your voices heard, and everybody should be stepping up. There is no time for complacency in this moment.
Buffalo Congressman Tim Kennedy, we know you will not be complacent. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Thank you.